It's a common trope in action films, the hero coming out of retirement, drawn back into action by a personal mission. This really speaks to me because I've been semi-retired from video essays, and by retired I mean that the creative spark hasn't struck me in quite some time. Until last week, when IO Interactive's 007 First Light released. However, it didn't inspire me to sit down and script out another video. It made me really want to watch a bunch of Bond films. So I did. And as you can tell from the title, today we're covering Casino Royale. And I thought it would be like a nice thematic return for me to come back here because my last video on this channel was on Doom, which was also for that film's 20th anniversary. And that's a video game movie. And this is Casino Royale's 20th anniversary, and it's not really a video game movie, but James Bond is all about video game. Well, it's all over video games, and a video game of James Bond, you know, it's what made me come back. So it all kind of just, you know, it tied together. But you can follow me on my main channel, Jones's Gaming. I'll have it linked down in the description. I guess I'm just gonna come back here whenever 20th anniversary and some kind of video game something realigns, maybe, or maybe for other things. Who knows? But anyways, let's get past that and let's just jump right into the video. This most recent rewatch reaffirmed that Casino Royale is the best Bond film, and I'm not taking any criticism on that. I love Dr. No, GoldenEye, and From Russia with Love. They're great movies, but Casino Royale will probably always be the pinnacle of the franchise for me. It's also been adapted 2 previous times and never been done justice. First was an episode of an anthology series called Climax. In 1954, their 3rd episode was an hour-long Casino Royale recreation, and yes, that actually does predate Connery's Bond portrayal. In this, however, 007 is an American spy going by Jim Bond for some reason. But this episode was like largely lost to time until the 80s when it was recovered by film historians. It was an incomplete copy, but in the years since they've managed to find basically the last episode, according to what I've read, except for the last couple seconds of the footage, but you know, basically the whole thing. In 1967, an adaptation was made that underwent a lot of behind-the-scene troubles, with multiple directors and writers all being credited and resulting in a movie that feels tonally inconsistent. It was eventually brought to Eon for them to release as the next official 007 film. They ended up taking one look at it, decided it was complete garbage, and rejected it, which led to them releasing the film on its own and labeling it a parody of James Bond. The rights wouldn't be given to Eon until 1999. They were given the rights by Sony Pictures, who traded them in exchange for the film rights to Spider-Man. Because of this deal, we got Sam Raimi's Spider-Man movies and Casino Royale. What a great deal for film lovers everywhere. Today, we're going to go over all the elements that make this movie so great. For those of you who aren't that good at math, this film released in 2006, meaning it came out during the height of the edgy 2000s reboot trend. This is one of my favorite eras for entertainment. Long-running franchises were suddenly taken into a darker direction to appeal to audiences. Did it always work? No, but I do have a kind of nostalgia for this time period. If there is one film that exemplifies this trend, it is 2005's Batman Begins, which is the best live-action Batman movie, by the way. I have a video on my main channel if you want to go watch that. The public perception of the Batman brand had been dragged through the mud by Joel Schumacher's well-intentioned but ultimately misguided duology that cast the series in a more comedic and exaggerated light. So when 2005 hit, we got a Batman movie that was darker and more realistic, any semblance of silliness or whimsy being surgically removed. Even Halloween had an edgy 2000s reboot. They found a way to make an edgy version of a horror movie. And it wasn't just movies, even comic books were going through their edgy 2000s reboot phase. I have 2 of my favorite examples right here in Mark Millar's The Ultimates, which is really good despite what people on the internet might tell you. It is a great book. And my favorite comic of all time, I think currently, is Garth Ennis's Punisher Max. These are incredible books that just took characters and kind of brought them back to their roots, but in a much darker, grounded way. Video games of the era were so edgy you'd cut yourself just by looking at a new release. Fucking Sonic the Hedgehog took a dark turn with Shadow, a game where the protagonist swears and uses guns. Resident Evil 5 dropped the Scooby-Doo haunted house theatrics of the previous entries for a tough guy military adventure set in war-torn Africa with that iconic yellow piss filter. The 007 franchise was in a similar state to Batman. While Brosnan's debut feature GoldenEye was met with critical praise, its follow-ups were criticized for being too campy and ridiculous. This is something that many of the people in charge of the franchise have commented on. Everyone knew it was time to redo Bond for a new era, and there was only one man for the job: Martin Campbell. Due to licensing difficulties, the 007 franchise was put on hold for several years, ending Timothy Dalton's tenure as the super spy. When things were finally sorted out, Dalton had moved on from the role, and the world had experienced a major change: the collapse of the Soviet Union and the end of the Cold War, two things that had defined the 007 franchise since it started. In fact, GoldenEye was the first film released in a world with no Soviet Union. Martin Campbell was tasked with introducing the world to a new version of the character played by Pierce Brosnan, but also introducing the character to a new world. And he pulled it off very well. GoldenEye was a massive success, loved by everyone, and made a shit ton of money. But Campbell was a particular director. He was asked to return to helm every subsequent entry and recapture the magic, but he turned down the offer every time. He had no interest in telling Chapter 2 of Bond's life. To him, there was nothing new he could do with the character as he was. But when Eon approached him to direct Casino Royale, the offer was different. He was being asked to hit the reset button on 007 once again, to tell a whole new story in a whole new way. Another fun video game connection, this film was written by Robert Wade and Neal Purvis, who would go on to write all the Craig Bond films. However, director Martin Campbell brought on Wright and Paul Haggis to do rewrites of the script. Haggis's other credits include Crash, $1 Million Baby, and Modern Warfare 3. And in case you don't know, that game's story kicks ass. So, you might be wondering, why did this reboot trend even become a thing? Well, the answer is 9/11. This was an event that largely changed our perception of the world, putting things into a darker, more paranoid perspective. I actually had written this into the script before I did a little bit of research and found out that the producers of the film actually directly cited 9/11 as a reason they did not feel comfortable telling a Bond story in a post 9/11 world. They felt it was maybe disrespectful to tell a story about worldwide terrorism and crime and kind of glamorize and downplay the seriousness of that. It's safe to say that this era of entertainment hasn't aged super well for everyone. A lot of people look back and see the dark tone as forced and too try-hard, coming across as corny, kind of like a high school emo phase. And there's definitely some truth to that, but something about these films just feels so earnest. They have a kind of grit that you can't find in the type of focus-tested, perfectly polished studio films releasing today. So yeah, it can be a little try-hard sometimes, but it was honest. And Casino Royale works so well because beneath all of its gritty realism, it has a lot going on actually. It's not just a cool Bond film meant to appeal to teenage boys, it's a tragic love story, an exciting action-adventure, a story of espionage and betrayal with high-stakes gambling, and uses its longer runtime to tell a story that feels like a massive Bond epic. So, with that all out of the way, let's begin. The movie starts with a jumping on point for new fans. We see the night that Bond earned his 00 status, presented entirely in black and white. This scene utilizes moody and dramatic lighting and shadows and effective expository dialogue to create a striking opening scene. For anyone who doesn't remember, I will give you a brief refresher. MI6 Section Chief Dryden returns to his office to see a safe has been broken into when he's confronted by Bond for selling government secrets to the highest bidder. In this scene, every shot is carefully framed and shadows are used to obscure characters, symbolizing the intrigue of this confrontation. We flash back to earlier that same day where Bond is fighting Fisher, who is working with Dryden. In this scene, there is no intrigue, just an explosive close-quarters fight scene in a public restroom. The lighting here is harsh, there are no shadows, and unlike Dryden's clinical office, everything here has a dirty, sweaty quality to it. Bond kills Fisher, which is his first ever kill. Upon completing his second kill, Bond will officially be given 00 status. Bond then kills Dryden and the opening credits start, which I'll talk about soon. But first, I want to give some praise to this opening. It really is an incredible piece of directing from Martin Campbell. This entire scene is available to watch on YouTube on the official James Bond channel. Go look it up and play it with the sound turned off. I promise you will be able to understand essentially every detail just through the film's visual language. It's very clear that Dryden is some kind of important government official. You'll understand that Bond took something important from his safe. It will be obvious that the Fisher scene is a flashback being discussed by Bond and Dryden, and you'll understand that these two have a pre-existing relationship. At the end of the scene, Dryden tells Bond that his second kill will be easier, and Bond kills him saying he knows, and even this is conveyed in just the film's visuals. After killing Fisher, the camera lingers on Bond. He seems shaken, not stirred, as he looks down at the life he just took. However, in Dryden's office, Craig plays the scene completely cold and analytical, not reacting at all when killing him, conveying the message in the dialogue purely through editing, directing, and acting choices. Just brilliant, genius stuff. We then get the iconic gun barrel shot as the film's theme begins. In my opinion, the best Bond track. Again, I might be biased. This film's track, You Know My Name, was written and performed by Chris Cornell, the lead vocalist of Soundgarden and Audioslave, two of my favorite bands. The song was also co-produced by the film's composer, David Arnold. With his help, it incorporates the iconic Bond sound, with Cornell's soulful but still rugged vocals to convey a more serious and exciting Bond for a new audience. I loved the Craig-era Bond themes for the most part. Adele's Skyfall and Billie Eilish's No Time to Die tracks were great. I really like the minor decision to not name the song after the movie, or even include it in the song in any way at all. However, the lyrics still do heavily reference the movie and the important elements of James Bond's character. I can't play the song in its entirety, obviously, but I'm going to highlight some standout lines. These two lines imply that the song is being written from James Bond's perspective, and in the storytelling he's talking to a potential romantic love interest, and he warns them about the inherent danger of his life, even stating that when push comes to shove, he'll just leave them behind and move on to whatever suits him next. This is in stark contrast to the depiction of Bond in GoldenEye, where it is a crucial element of the script that Bond values human life, even of people he just met, like Isabella Scorupco's Natalia Simonova. Like many other lines in this theme, including the aforementioned "The odds will betray you," this lyric references the theme of gambling and bets, but also summarizes Bond's cunning nature very well. Finally, the song's hook repeatedly reaffirms that this new take on the character is completely calloused and detached. This is a great track that establishes the title character and uses themes of love, betrayal, and excitement. Starting with Skyfall, the idea of what a James Bond theme should be was redefined as like a big, epic, sweeping, melancholy theme that focused on themes of lost love, tragedy, and just other dark, sad things. So it is cool to go back and hear a song that's just full of energy and excitement, is preparing you for a more exciting film. Now we're getting on to the actual movie itself. Bond and another MI6 agent have been deployed to Madagascar to track down a bomb maker, and this is peak 2000s Xbox 360 filmmaking. The scene is bathed in harsh yellows and the environment is hostile and rugged. If I have one criticism of this movie, it's that there are a few moments where time passes, but the film doesn't do a great job explaining how much. In this scene, I get the feeling that years have passed and that this is a more experienced 007, but in the next scene, M mentions that he was only recently given the title, so too much time couldn't have passed. For some reason, Bond's partner in this mission is an idiot and gets immediately spotted by the bomb maker, leading to a chase sequence. In the 2000s, freerunning, or parkour, was becoming a very popular trend on the internet, so of course, that's what we open our movie with.
This is Parkour, internet sensation of 2004, and it was in one of the Bond films.
On the one hand, it does feel very much like a studio mandate to incorporate something trendy into the movie, but on the other, it's just an exciting sequence, and that's what you want your movie to open with. They needed to find a way to convey Bond's physicality, and pulling off a chase sequence without feeling cheesy. Brosnan's skiing chase scene in Die Another Day wouldn't work in a film like this. Freerunning is a good choice because it doesn't feel like a sport that Bond practices and perfects in his off time, like skiing he would have to do frequently. It comes across more as, and I know it isn't, but it can be perceived more as something he's just good at because he has natural instincts and athleticism. And it also gives the filmmakers an opportunity to give an in-depth exploration of the exotic environments Bond goes to. These are globe-trotting films after all, so taking him to unique locations and being able to just run all over their architecture with cameras, it's just good for the movie. It also gives more of a look into the character of this newer, tougher Bond, as he quickly improvises his way past problems, often just breaking things to achieve his goal, smashing through a drywall rather than diving through a narrow opening and breaking a lift to quickly get to a lower level. Bond eventually chases the bomb maker to an embassy where he is hiding for protection. He storms the building and kills the bomb maker on camera, leading to an international incident. Back home, he's in hot water with M, who has to answer for the killing of an unarmed man on foreign soil, but is also upset because Bond was meant to bring the target in alive. Rather than return for work, he breaks into M's apartment, where she chews him out and tells him that he's probably going to be out of a job in the next few days. I love the relationship between them in this scene. Bond has always had a tendency to go rogue, but here M is written more like a mom and Bond like the disappointing problem child that she has to put up with. The bomb maker was meant to lead MI6 to a larger organization, but with him dead, they have no leads. Bond decides to go off-grid using some information he kept to himself, and he heads to the Bahamas to find Alex Dimitrios, the man responsible for hiring the bomb maker. Dimitrios has already brought on a replacement to carry out the terrorist attack on behalf of a man named Le Chiffre. At this point, we're about 30 minutes into the film, and it has all just been setting up the main plot, which hasn't even started yet. The main villain of this film is Le Chiffre, who is basically a bank for international crime and terrorism groups. He holds their money and distributes it where they need, when they need him to. However, he is also using their money to bet on the stock market, which is a risky move considering who he's taking this money from. He places all the money he's holding and uses it to short the stocks of an airplane company which is planning to reveal a new plane. In anticipation of the reveal, stocks are high, and Le Chiffre is sending the bomb maker to blow up the plane during its reveal, causing his stocks to plummet and earning him millions. However, Bond's investigation leads to him killing Dimitrios and the bomb maker, preventing the terrorist attack, and now Le Chiffre has lost all the money he's been trusted to hold. Money belonging to very dangerous people. Now, at about an hour, the main plot of the film begins. I think one of my favorite parts of this movie is how it's broken up into 3 distinct acts, each one mostly capable of being a standalone project. Act 1 has Bond's origin and him stopping the bomb maker, and the scene where he saves the plane feels like the climax to a movie. In Act 2, Le Chiffre is scrambling to save himself and organizes a high-stakes poker game that he plans to win and earn back all his lost money. Rather than bring him in, MI6 wants to send Bond into the tournament to beat Le Chiffre, causing him to lose all his money and turn himself into MI6, where he'll provide all his secrets in exchange for protection. This is such a unique premise for a spy thriller. There's no mustache-twirling bad guy, or a super weapon, or a plot to overthrow the government. The main antagonist is just a desperate figure making one last play for his survival as the walls close around him. And that's not to say Le Chiffre is so desperate he's in a helpless panic. He's always cunning and ruthless, making several plays to eliminate Bond when he realizes who he really is. Bond quickly spots his tell and uses it to force him into a corner. However, Le Chiffre catches on to this and uses it as an opportunity to lure Bond into going bust, having him removed from the game. Bond is accompanied by a small supporting cast. Vesper Lynd, a British Treasury employee who is in charge of overseeing the funds used to participate in the game. She serves as this entry's Bond girl, having to pose as his wife while undercover and forming a relationship with him. Mathis is a French spy working as support for Bond while in Montenegro. He also serves one very important purpose: very clear exposition explaining how the fuck poker even works. I have tried playing poker a few times, and it just confuses me every time I do. Maybe there is something wrong with me, but I was always so glad to just have this guy around explaining the rules of poker to Vesper, because I would have been extremely lost without him. Finally is another player at the table, Felix Leiter, a CIA agent, or as he puts it, a brother from Langley. Felix is a common Bond supporting character originating in the books and even appearing in the very first Bond film, Dr. No. In the books, Felix would retire from the CIA and go work for the Pinkerton Detective Agency. Yes, that Pinkerton Detective Agency. I'm not sure if he's aware of what they did to my boys Hosea Matthews and John Marston. Anyways, Leiter is inevitably going to lose the game, but he recognizes that Bond has what it takes to win. So he makes a deal. The Americans will front Bond the money to re-enter the tournament, and in exchange, they get to bring in Le Chiffre. Bond agrees, and he's back in the game. This time, Bond baits Le Chiffre into another all-or-nothing bet and takes the entire pot for himself. But before it's time to celebrate, Bond rethinks the night's events and realizes that Mathis is a traitor who warned Le Chiffre that Bond had gone onto his tell, resulting in him getting removed from the game. Before he can do anything about it, Le Chiffre captures Vesper, and the chase to get her back results in a crash, rendering Bond unconscious. This leads to probably the defining scene of this film, where Bond wakes up stripped of all his clothes and tied to a chair with no seat as Le Chiffre uses a giant rope to smack James Bond in his Officer Bowles. This is for sure like one of the edgiest moments in the movie, and I mean that in like a neutral way, because it is a great scene. I like that Bond is written as this kind of psycho who's just willing to taunt Le Chiffre to the very end, even though he knows he's about to die, and he's just making it completely worse for him.
Now the whole world's gonna know that you died scratching my balls.
But before the torture can get too far, one of Le Chiffre's clients, Mr. White, storms the room and kills him. For some reason, Bond is left alive, and now the final act of the film begins. Bond wakes up in a hospital. Shortly thereafter, he identifies Mathis as the mole, and he's taken away by MI6 for interrogation. He recovers from his injuries and reunites with Vesper, retiring from MI6 to live a quiet life with her. Once again, I have no idea how much time has passed in this scene, because we've seen Bond recovering in the hospital, unable to walk. Then the next time we see him, he's out with Vesper in Venice, just enjoying a peaceful life of retirement. Then N calls him out of the blue, and she's like, hey Bond, the British government was wondering when you were going to return the $150 million that you took. No rush or anything, just get back to me whenever you can. Alright, talk to you later, bye. I mean, the only way this makes sense is if like a day had passed, because there's no way that a super spy with the ability to just disappear and fall off the grid, who was trained to do that, would be allowed to leave without ensuring that all the money was returned. But whatever, it's not a big deal, who cares? This causes Bond to realize that Vesper has taken the money for herself, and he checks her phone that she left behind, using it to track her to a meeting where she's handing it all over to the mysterious client, Mr. White. White escapes with the money, and Vesper is pulled beneath the waters of Venice in a collapsing elevator, locking the door to prevent Bond from saving her as some kind of penance for her crimes. We later see Bond with M. He's obviously in a dark place because he loved Vesper. M informs him that she was blackmailed into turning rogue as Mr. White kidnapped her boyfriend and held him hostage. She also saved his life by offering to give Mr. White the money in exchange for letting him live. He realized that she probably left her phone behind on purpose so Bond could find her and put a stop to the deal. This motivates him to track down Mr. White, shooting him and dropping the iconic line,
The name's Bond. James Bond.
There are some plot threads get wrapped up later on in following films, most notably in Quantum of Solace, which is... it's a movie. Mathis is proven to be innocent, despite Le Chiffre claiming he was a double agent. Quantum of Solace also picks up exactly where this film leaves off, with Bond escaping with White, trying to bring him in for interrogation. The shady organization that White works for remains unidentified because Eon didn't currently have the rights to Spectre. This will be revealed in the fourth Craig film, Spectre, once Eon obtained the rights. Finally, it is also revealed that Vesper's boyfriend was actually a honeypot agent sent by Spectre to enter romantic relationships with women of great importance so they can be blackmailed. Bond tracks down this mysterious boyfriend and has him brought in by MI6 as vengeance, for what happened to Vesper. So all in all, I think that this film stands like side by side with Batman Begins as the best gritty 2000s reboot of a franchise. It just works so well, and it's a film that has what is widely considered a great follow-up. Batman Begins has The Dark Knight. Casino Royale does not have Quantum of Solace, that doesn't count. But Skyfall is considered an amazing movie, and a lot of people think it is superior to this film. I personally, not to be a contrarian, happen to prefer Casino Royale and Batman Begins to their sequels, although I think Skyfall and The Dark Knight are both amazing, incredible movies. There's just something about these first part ones, this first attempt at reintroducing this character and like the massive swing that it was and how well it's pulled off. Anyways, I love this era of movies. I know it's nostalgia, but I just have such a fond memory of this time, and I think a lot of other people do. I appreciate a genuine grungy film that feels like it was made with a director's soul and heart attached into it. But yeah, I don't know. That's it for me here today. I'm done. I just want to say that I love my gritty 2000s reboots. It's awesome. I have a lot of nostalgia for the era, but I think a lot of other people do too. I think we're looking back on this era of films very fondly. Even Star Wars in this time went through like its edgy phase. So I don't know. It's just cool. It's fun to look back at. And I'll be back soon, hopefully. All right.